So we're back outside the combined courts. Basically what's happened inside has been a day and a half, nearly 2 days of horse trading, and the judge has basically been waiting for us to sort things out between ourselves, and he's agreed with it.
Do you remember that, Helen? What? On Marden Road?
Just say a quick statement on behalf of the 4 people who opposed the application in court, but also on behalf of all 13 who refused to sign the undertaking. 13 people were threatened with huge court costs to force them to sign an undertaking. 13 people refused to be bullied. Collectively, we opposed the application and we were threatened with costs of in excess of £75,000. They applied for a 3-year injunction with a ban on legitimate slow walking and delaying fellings. They wanted to curtail ordinary people's freedom of speech by preventing people posting encouraging comments on social media. They wanted to stop people from standing on their own property to defend their trees. The outcome today, to start with, is something I'd like to say that the judge at the end there said was the defendants, those who opposed it and also those who didn't oppose it, were eminently justified in not signing their undertaking.
Yes.
Yes.
The outcome today is that the local authority, our Sheffield City Council, spent in excess of £75,000 horse trading a wording of an injunction with 4 of us. The ironic thing is that before this case started, that's exactly what we asked them to do before they took it to court, and they refused. The new injunction makes it clear that anything that happens on private property is not covered by and not restricted by the injunction. The council agreed that we can slow walk and delay tree fellings every day. The term is not 3 years, but is 18 months. The judge said the terms were fair and proportionate balance between the conflicting interests of both parties. None of us have signed their undertaking. The 4 of us will obey the new injunction. Thank you for all the support. Can I just thank 3 very, very hard-working people. Certainly Ben Manovich from Lloyd's PR Solicitors has worked tirelessly supporting us with this case. We have been very ably and very well represented by Owen Greenall and Paul Powsland, who has been a champion for protecting trees in our city. Not only have they been extremely able and professional advocates on our behalf, we've really grown to like them, to love them, to respect them, and they're welcome here in our city anytime.
Yeah. There'll always be a sofa to crash on.
I'm basically squatting in Russell.
If anybody could eat the corn, that's
No.
Yes.
Liz, you wanted to have a more conversation.
Yeah, I would.
Paul's going to say Paul.
But I'll let you.
I could do the conversation.
Yeah.
That might be better actually.
Right.
Yeah.
Is it
going to be a spoken?
It is going to be spoken.
Oh, I can have a cake in my hand.
But not in your mouth. Well, you can try. Right.
Paul, I understand there was talk of a joint statement with the council that fell down. Is that right?
There was, interestingly, once we had reached an agreement with the defendants, it was suggested to us that we might want to put out a joint press statement.
And who suggested that?
I think that suggestion came from Paul Billington and the legal team. It was suggested that we put out a joint statement. Obviously, we let that bus go by. Obviously, we thought, well, you know, okay, if we've got something that we agree on and that we want to put out a joint statement, maybe that would be worth considering. So we suggested that we put out a joint statement that included the information that the pause on tree felling would continue until such times as formal mediation had taken place. Unfortunately, we got a message back shortly after that the council weren't in a position to be able to announce formal mediation. We have been assured that tree felling won't start again. The pause will continue. If and when the council would like to put out a statement that formal mediation would take place, we'd be happy to put out a joint press statement with them welcoming that fact. We would like to have formal mediation. We look forward to a time when maybe that is something they can announce, but at the moment they say they can't announce it, so we wait to hear.
I suppose you could call what's just happened a form of formal mediation,
Yeah,
because it was a discussion, wasn't it? A very expensive one, unfortunately.
It was a very expensive, unnecessary discussion. And the judge indicated that it was a fair and proportionate outcome, the wording of the injunction, between very conflicting parties. It's kind of the first time that we've actually had a negotiated settlement. We can achieve a negotiated settlement. It's entirely possible. We'd really like it to happen.
Yeah. There's something else I noticed from him, so that was, again, the judge said he didn't have an opinion on the rights and wrongs. Well, you were down there, but...
Yeah. I mean, it's something that Justice Mail said originally, and it's been repeated that, you know, that the judiciary, the law, doesn't take an opinion on whether it's right or wrong to cut down a healthy tree as part of our urban forest. The law might not make a distinction on the rights and wrongs of what Sheffield City Council are doing. I think history will. Until we get a proper sustainable strategy, until we get proper expertise managing our urban forest, we'll continue to lose it bit by bit. We've lost far too much of it already. We hope that the change of tack by the council will stop the needless reduction of our tree canopy. They have to make things better. The situation at the moment is pretty much rock bottom.
Yeah, and the judge made a point of... sorry, I'm...
Sorry.
Well, I've got a deadline.
By the way, very nice. Right.
Yep.
You ready? I just want the four of you in. However's...
Right,
We're ready.
BBC Radio deadlines.
Is it 4 o'clock?
No, actually, it's about past. Right. Okay, so I've got Calvin Payne, Alison Teal, Councillor Alison Teal, Dave Dillner, Paul Cook, and Brooke. Sorry, I'll start again.
Too late.
I've got Councillor Alison Teal, Calvin Payne, Dave Dillner, and Paul Brooke here with me. And I was going to introduce you later. Paul Poundsland, who's been representing Calvin Payne, one of the barristers. You're all feeling pretty happy, but there is an injunction. So why are you happy? What's happened here today? Who wants to go first?
Well, one of the things that pleases us is the comments that the judge made at the end of this. I mean, this case started because we were threatened with having to sign an undertaking and give a promise to the court on some very, very poor wording and very restrictive elements of an injunction. We refused. The judge said at the end of it that we were eminently justified in refusing to sign that undertaking, and that we've reached a compromise and an agreement that is about proportionate between the needs of Sheffield City Council and our rights as individuals in Sheffield. So yeah, that feels like a good day.
this is the first time, really, the word compromise has been used by both sides and meant it.
I was just about to say, it's been used a lot. Yeah, we have seen in little over 24 hours what can be achieved, and the judge has made, another thing the judge said is how both sides are to be congratulated about that. And unfortunately, they've spent a large amount of money to bring us here yesterday and today. For us, has been pointed out many times by us today, that for something that we've been asking for literally years, that things are talked about, and it is a start. It is a start. I mean, we don't think there should be an injunction against what we do. There is. That's the way the law is. But people need to, if you compare what they wanted with what they've got, it's very different. And the very fact that they've spent a huge amount of money, 70-something thousand pounds of public money, to bring this here when the talks could have happened over a sandwich and a cup of tea anywhere. And in fact, some of the talks have happened today at the town hall. That could have happened a few days ago, a few weeks ago, a few months ago, and it hasn't. So people have been dragged through this, and public money has been spent on doing it. So it may be that we've seen the end of that sort of threat. The undertaking has been dismissed by the judge, people right not to sign it. Hopefully the same attitude might take to actually coming and solving these things in court, because we've been in court many times now, and being in court has not solved anything in this issue.
And the important thing for you guys is that you can still protest if you want to. And I know that this was carefully worded, but the minutiae is the important bit. But can you summarise what concessions you managed to get?
Actually, what I'd like to do is divert that question and say to all the Stag supporters, carry on protesting. Protest in line with the injunction. We must protect these trees. What they are doing is absolutely wrong. Continue to protect the trees. If you're not sure about whether you're going to be contravening the terms of the injunction, then make sure you read up on it, seek advice from those of us who do know what it's about, and get out there and remember, do it peacefully, do it lawfully. Power to the peaceful.
Alison, just explain, I know that Dave diverted that question, but just explain some of the specifics you are now able to do that you were worried about and you were fighting.
Yeah, there's things like slow walking, which initially their position was that they wanted to stop that or reduce it to 5 minutes. So that's been renegotiated, and now we've got 20 minutes, which is in line with what the police have allowed us to do. So that's fine. And there's things like making it clear what's private land and what's public land, and so that's been discussed and explored again. They were wanting to make some changes that we weren't keen on, but I think we've reached a really good compromise now that we know that we can still protest on private land, and that can sometimes be an effective way of resolving some trees that are healthy and we hope to retain.
So the fight goes on as far as you guys are concerned. Paul, you've come from London to help represent the people of Sheffield that have...
For about the 5th time, I think, now.
that have been fighting this.
Getting to know the city a lot.
Why? What's your interest in it?
Fundamentally, I love trees, and I increasingly see my legal practices moving into tree protection and speaking for trees, not just in Sheffield but all over the country where these issues are happening more and more. Although I have to admit as well to an increasingly growing and sneaking love to all these crazy people here, who I've got to know better and better every time, and actually I now count as friends, so I kind of have to keep coming out now, don't I? In terms of the fight goes on, but also there are changes in the language, and I think we've seen in this time the Jekyll and Hyde of Sheffield City Council, if I can put it like that. We've seen their bad old side of the council that continues to fight rather than compromise, that wastes tens of thousands of pounds of taxpayers' money unnecessarily, and that keeps taking the legal and the fighting route rather than the compromise route. But we've also seen cracks of light and hopes of progress here as well, because they have talked to us, they have compromised, and they're also talking, I believe, seriously about the need to actually properly compromise and mediate the dispute more generally. So, we need to keep fighting them if they do plan to come back for more trees, but we also need to be open to this idea of progress, to settling matters and mediating it, and trying to find a way forward that works for everyone. And actually I'm increasingly confident that that actually will happen and can. One last thing I would like to say though is that the only reason we have got this far, that the Sheffield City Council are willing to mediate and are willing to compromise, is the sheer bloody-minded determination of these people you see here today and that you see out on the streets. Because if they hadn't have done what they've done over the last couple of years, I talk about my client in particular because he's the one I seem to know best. 3 years, sorry Calvin, being out there, giving up your life to do this, Sheffield City Council would simply have taken those trees, and this city and this country would be a poorer place for it, and we would have lost something very special. And it's their efforts and their determination that have actually brought Sheffield City Council to the point of being able to compromise, and now we need to use that as best we can to fight to keep whatever trees remain.
I hate to say this, but I have to ask. I mean, there's been a lot of criticism of Sheffield City Council for spending the amount of money that it has in bringing you guys to court, but it wouldn't have needed to spend that money if you weren't out there protesting. So in some ways, some of the money that it's spending is because you have been so determined and you have said, no, I'm not going to sign it, and yes, take us to court.
Well, I mean, just to reflect what I said, that in this case, the money was spent trying to make us sign an undertaking, and the judge said at the end of it that we were eminently justified not to have signed that undertaking because it was badly worded, it was poorly written, it was over-restricted. What we've negotiated is something that's more of a balance. Our issue was that we should have been able to negotiate that without having to spend a fortune on lawyers. It wasn't our choice to take us to court. It was our choice not to sign something that was poor law in that sense, and we defended ourselves on that basis. They made a bad set of decisions trying to drag us into court on that basis. To be honest, we didn't have a choice. It may be that they've spent a lot of money, but for each of us there, we were facing bankruptcy. And that's something that you have to consider when you stand up to this case. They didn't have to incur this kind of money whatsoever. They didn't have to incur this money over the last 3 years taking us on and fighting us on the process. If they've now reached a position where they're saying that AMI can adapt the specification and trees can be saved. We're talking about the last 300, and they're now saying that some of those trees don't need to be felled. Well, if they'd said that 3-4 years ago and re-looked at it and discussed with it, they wouldn't have had to spend a penny on legal fees, because we wouldn't have been standing under trees and we wouldn't have been protesting their poor actions and their bad choices and felling healthy trees. So yeah, I'm afraid they have brought the costs upon themselves. Absolutely. Our actions have been a reaction to their bad management of our city's trees.
We'll end it there.
Yeah, that's probably quite a good one to end it on.
Thanks very much. Is this going to be all last?
So it's quite a small group here. It's been a very long day. It's a trial of endurance, just sitting there waiting for something to happen. But I think you'll agree it's quite a positive thing.
Just setting off from the town.
There's something else going on over here.
I think it's actually a very interesting topic for a full-length documentary and/or some very interesting articles in magazines. There's an increasing use of injunctions to create almost like private areas of law, and it's happening more and more and more. You see it in cases where you've got either you need money, so you need to be the local authority who's got taxpayers' money, the government who's got taxpayers' money, or you need to be a company or a rich individual who wants to get your own way, and you want to create your own private area of law. Go for an injunction. And what you see is that the people who are having injunctions made against them are those that are the protectors, who are trying to call off this madness, whether it's chopping down trees, fracking, ridiculous anti-environmental projects. And it's happening more and more, and it's such a mishmash jurisdiction, because you have the only way you can often challenge these is to stand up and risk your entire house and your security and costs. And many of these injunctions that were cited in court today were made against persons unknown. So no one challenged them. There was no one. You've got public law that's being made on a private basis. There's no one's challenging. And it's actually an increasing scandal and a disgrace. And I think if people are starting around the country to wake up to the idea that, hey, something's gone a bit awry here, and they're using what was a remedy in civil actions against individuals to basically allow companies and local authorities and rich individuals to bully environmental protesters and make, frankly, rubbish areas of law because people can't challenge it without risking their house. And what we've seen here today is people who are brave enough to stand up and risk everything, which is what many of these people have done. They'd actually won in the sense that the original thing asked for was refused. But if they weren't brave enough to risk their home and risk their livelihoods, and a rubbish area of law, which obviously was badly drafted and far too wide, as shown by the judge's comments at the end, would have been made. So people need to start questioning why these injunctions are being made, how they're being made, and why we're allowing ourselves to let rich people or people with money buy their own law. I think I'm going to be doing a lot more of these cases in the future, not just at Sheffield. I think I'm actually going to buy the Injunctions textbook now, because I'm like, this is what I'm going to be doing. Oh, God. And I'm going to be losing as well, every time, because the law is, surprise, surprise, in favour of the rich. Oh, spoiler. I imagine that bit at the end is probably not directly related to this, but it's worth thinking about in the future.
No, it's the internal memory. Everything's subject to editorial. Yeah, someone. Yeah, I don't. Compare it to so many. Rather than anything.
There's the conversations that stack up. So
I think things are breaking up now into private conversation, so I'll not stick my phone in people's faces for any longer, and we'll probably end up in a pub somewhere again. So thanks for watching, and I'll finish the video here. If anything comes up, I'll try and record it if I get a chance.
Well done. Right.
TV and BBC.